Hey Shumon, my name is Rahul and I'm a big fan of the band and have been since its inception. I was there for your first gig at the Metropolitan, mainly because I was playing with the other band Aritis on the bill, and I've really loved your sound and loved the evolution of the band through the years.
Hey Rahul, thank you again for all your questions. For those of you guys who don't know, Rahul and I do go back quite a bit. We've played in bands before that have shared the stage several times over the course of several years. He's a phenomenal guitar player, and he's got one record out already called Made Russia, I believe. And I don't know what that means, but it's a killer guitar instrumental fusion album, so check it out. So without further ado, thanks again. I do have to make a shout out to your t-shirt, which is hilarious. But yeah, let's answer some questions.
I've curated the questions by theme. So we'll go through different themes, then you can pick and choose what you want to answer, or answer everything and post it up and give us an insight into the way you're thinking through things. So the first question from that perspective of the band is, the band consists of various different ethnicities and backgrounds. How does that inform your songwriting, and how has that affected your band as a whole?
So it's funny, I was looking at one of these progressive rock sites, and it has a list of bands and the nationality, or where the band is originally from. There's a lot of bands from the United States, the United Kingdom, and then you see Schumann and it says multinational, which I thought was hilarious because we're all American, right? We're an American band. But ethnically, obviously, you could just tell by the look of the band, we're coming from all parts of the world. As far as how that affects the songwriting, my parents are from Bangladesh, and I've lived here all my life, but, that certainly has an effect on creative output, for anybody, for that matter, where they come from, how they were raised. There's a lot of Eastern elements in our music. Some of the scales I use are from that part of the world. The way I finger certain runs is kind of similar to a sitar. I don't do that much, but some of it is there. Musically, that we do have elements of Indian music, tablas and things like that. Some Arabic stuff as well, some Persian stuff, and that's just me listening to world music and my love of world music. So, and that goes far back to my childhood. So that's how it kind of affects the Schumann sound. I definitely feel if Tyler or Jose wrote a bit more, it would come out in a different way as well. I know Tyler listens to a lot of Korean music. It would be great if we can implement some of that into our own sound. But until that happens, it's me writing all the songs. So I can only speak for myself. And there's definitely some influence from the East, from South Asia and West Asia.
Within any given band, there's always contention and compromise when you're writing new songs. Everyone has a different idea. Everyone has a different vision on how the song may sound, or how they want it to sound at the end of the day. How does your band compromise on that kind of situation?
So luckily, because I'm the main songwriter, I haven't really needed to compromise. And if you kind of listen to our records, we cover a wide range of musical genres. Sometimes, we've got more ambient stuff, electronic stuff. There's the progressive metal side. We've got some ballads, instrumental pieces. I think maybe because of my wide influences, that kind of appeases the rest of the guys. Maybe it touches on things where they want to hit that I'm already hitting for them, maybe. As far as I'm aware, there's no really tension on the direction of the band or the creative process. When it comes to recording, like Jose and I will get together and, we'll come up with bass parts together. Some parts he'll come up on his own. We might make some compromises there, where I hear something in my head a certain way. And then he comes up with a different approach that challenges me, and I might be a little bit more reluctant to go that way. But usually I tend to go with whatever that second party is deciding, be it drums, bass, or anything for that matter, because it does make it takes the song in a different direction, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Now, at the end of the day, if it's something I'm really strongly against, more than likely we'll deviate back to my original idea. But I'm always willing to try something regardless. I'll never say no. More than likely, as far as Jose is concerned, at the end of the day, we do go with what his initial idea is, and I do think it's for the betterment of the song. But in general, there is many clashes or anything like that.
The next question for the band as a whole, and I'd love for each one of you to answer it, is what artists are you listening to at this point that may surprise some of your fans? So not anything really in the prog rock or prog metal world, but anything else that you're listening to.
So as far as non-prog bands and artists that I listen to, there's a ton of them. I think most of the things I listen to are not, progressive rock or progressive metal, though there is a ton of progressive rock stuff that I do still listen to. I listen to a lot of ambient soundscapes, so, like rainwater, thunderstorms, random things like that. It's very weird. Things just to kind of calm me down and give me a sense of peace. I listen to a lot of world music, and that's nothing new. I've always kind of stated that in every interview, asking a similar question. There's a lot of 80s music that I love. It's no secret that one of my favorite bands of all time is Tears for Fears. Some would say they're kind of progressive. I don't know. They're not really like progressive in the sense of what we think prog is. They definitely have elements of it, but I wouldn't categorize them as a prog rock band. I mean, there's just so many artists that I listen to outside of that. I listen to a lot of new age music, Ofra Haza, Afro Sound System, Nitin Sani, the list goes on and on.
So outside of progressive metal and rock, usually, I'm a huge metalhead. I think out of maybe besides Tyler, definitely most into, more straightforward metal out of the guys in the band. But I'm definitely a really, really big power metal fan. I'm really into Stratovarius and Sonata Arctica, Camelot, and things of that nature. When I was a lot younger, of course, I listened to a lot of Big Four, thrash, Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, and stuff like that. That's really what I got into before I really got into quote-unquote prog. Recently, I've been getting more into a lot heavier, more extreme metal with actually a lot of the harsh vocals. Bellacore is one band I've been listening to recently, Australian band. Omnium Gatherum from Finland. So yeah, realistically, just, kind of all over the place, but I definitely would say power metal is probably my favorite style outside of progressive metal. So, it's kind of all over the place, but as of recently, more along the lines of, more kind of extreme metal with harsh vocals, I guess.
And the next question, which is probably a difficult question to answer, and you probably heard this from other places, but I'll ask it anyway. Can each of the band members help define what prog means to them and how they define prog within the band context?
Definitely, it's difficult to answer, because a lot of people would obviously, the go-to answer would be, time signatures being all over the place and longer songs. I really think it's just about the peaks and valleys. I think it's really important, whether or not the songs are going to be 5 minutes long or 20 minutes long. I think it's important that there's variations there. It's more interesting when the songs are more varied and when you have maybe a guitar-driven song or maybe piano-driven songs. I think it's, when you have an album and you have everything between, very straightforward kind of rock 4/4 songs, but also having, maybe like a 10-minute epic on the album and having instrumentals, I think that's really important. And then definitely my favorite bands, definitely the songwriting is there's a formula, but you're not sticking too much to a formula. the songwriting and the kind of songs that you're putting out are very varied, and that's progressive to me. And of course, obviously, you have to. I mean, it's progressive rock. Come on, I mean, you have to have the really intricate time signature changes and some of the longer songs for sure. But I don't really think it's completely necessary to really qualify as prog, even if the songs are just all 5 minutes long. Just as long as there's variation there and different styles and different kind of approaches to the songwriting happening. That's progressive to me anyway. But again, everybody's answer is going to be different.
So prog to me is two different things, right? Some people say, prog with a capital P and a lowercase p. I don't remember which one's which. But there's like a progressive rock band that's doing something different, doing something that is fresh and new, that's never been done before. And that taps on that progressive side of things, right? In the 70s, you had all those bands with, elongated instrumentation, odd time signatures and things like that. That was really cool and very innovative at the time. Right now, there is the, prog rock and prog metal genre, which reflects all of that, So I think bands like Yes, Rush, Genesis, all that kind of stuff, they were truly progressive rock artists. Whereas now we get artists in the progressive rock genre kind of taking that to the next level, I guess, or carrying on the torch. That's kind of why, I don't consider Schumann a prog rock band in the sense that, we're like completely innovative doing things that's never been done before. We're a progressive rock band to a sense that's a part of the genre. We take from the genre the odd time signatures, the longer songs, and things of that nature. I don't think we're doing anything revolutionary, original for that matter, but that was never really my goal. I just kind of want to write great songs with great melody, and that's more important to me than anything else, despite genre or anything like that. So for me, there's prog, like doing something completely innovative and original that is fresh and new. It doesn't even have to be good, but, it helps if it is. And then there's prog, the genre, where there's, longer songs, more involved lyrics. The instrumentation is a little bit more difficult, time signatures, all that kind of stuff that we're all familiar with.
The next question I have is for the newest member of the band, William, who's on the drums. So Periphery has a really unique, simple setup. From a drum perspective, they don't really have too many different pieces out there in the kit. However, there are different bands that have multiple different pieces on their kit. What is your general approach from a drum perspective for a setup, and what would your dream setup look like?
So the big key for me on my kit is the Pearl rack that I've been using for a few years now. I didn't really think about it too much, but the way I set my bass drum up is a little different. A lot of drummers have their bass drum kind of have it set up like that. They have it set up like a V shape, but mine is more along the lines of kind of like that. I have the right kick drum really, really straight in front of me. So that makes it really hard to place my toms, but I generally try to make sure that the toms are a little bit lower and very close to the snares, so it kind of is more fluid. I've also lowered my cymbals a lot more recently, so I'm not reaching up really, really high, even though it looks kind of cool. If I had unlimited funds, I'm not really sure I would do too much more, honestly. I think I try to add a lot of stuff to my kit, but I don't really try to go out and, I don't have, 15 cymbals and 10 different pieces. I would say realistically, probably maybe one more crash and maybe like a second hi-hat when I'm playing fast double bass. But we don't really do a whole lot of fast double bass runs in Schumann, so it's just not really necessary.
With so many incredible guest stars on Schumann's album, I'm sure it was quite intimidating trying to audition for Schumann as a drummer. Can you walk us through your mindset and preparation and how the entire audition went? Because honestly, to me, it feels a lot like how Dream Theater auditioned when Mike left and they had an incredible array of drummers who were amazing in their own right, but they had massive shoes to fill. And I'm fairly certain that there's some similarities to how that played out for you as well. So I think all of us out here would love to hear your perspective on one, why you chose to audition for Schumann, how you prepared and how you approached the songs, what was your mindset like, and what was the audition process for you through and through.
It was a really cool learning experience, learning all these songs by so many fantastic drummers, man. You know, Mark Zonder and Marco Miniman. They're, 90% of it was really just doing it from memory, because that's what I've done my whole drumming life anyway. But they're definitely, when it comes to more of the complicated parts, like the bridge of You and I Will Change the World, slowing it down, definitely slowing it down as much as possible, and just playing the parts in my head with and without the drums, because I'll strip the drums using software, and just playing it in my head, even if it's having to slow it down, just to a crawl, and then just speeding it up and just getting those parts right, and studying those certain parts and just slowing them down is as much as possible. I'm not going to lie, the first few times I ran through some of these songs at the very start, it was a little intimidating for sure, but it was all worth it, and it's been really, really cool, and it's just, I'm very, very thankful to be playing with the band, because like I said, I was a fan of the band big time before I even joined, so it's definitely a great learning experience, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
This next one again is for William. From a drum perspective, you are the newest member of the band. A lot of us don't really know much about you. Can you walk us through your musical influences, who you grew up listening to, and who are your heroes from a drum perspective and or from a musician perspective that you look up to?
So I've been playing drums for a little over 10 years. I started when I was 12. I'm 23 now. Even though we're a progressive rock band, I actually didn't really get into progressive rock really until a little bit later down the line. The first prog band I listened to was Symphony X, and they're definitely probably still my favorite progressive metal / power metal band of all time. And the first metal band I ever listened to was Dragon Force when I was about 9 years old. So definitely them, Dave McIntosh, Portnoy, of course, Jason Rulo. I love John Macaluso. He's a really underrated drummer, American drummer now living in Italy. But I really would be remiss if I didn't mention Lars and Dave Lombardo from Metallica and Slayer. They were really huge early on, playing the really, really fast stuff and, aggressive double bass runs. And as I mentioned in one of my other little clips, progressive, I would definitely say progressive power metal is definitely my favorite little kind of style of metal and rock. I mean, like I said, Symphony X is one of my favorite bands. Stradivarius is really, really up there. Yeah, basically just a lot of progressive power metal, a lot of the early thrash stuff. And like I said, recently, of course, really, getting into Dream Theater and Fate's Warning and stuff like that. A little bit later in my teen years, definitely my biggest influences.
So Zinc, the person who is constantly rotating his gear, whether it's guitars or basses or cabs or what have you out there. So Zinc, what's your dream setup if you had unlimited funds and you could set up anything from any era? What would your setup look like? And what at this point are you chasing from a tone perspective or a sound perspective?
Honestly, I'm pretty satisfied with what I have right now. I've got my Mesa, JP2C head through a Mesa cab, which I just sold. So it's part of that conversation of pieces of musical gear going in and out of my rig. It happened again. I haven't settled on another cabinet yet. It's kind of scary because I've used Mesa cabs and, vintage 30 speakers pretty much my whole professional music career. So I'm going to try something a little different. But you're right, guitars come and go out of my rig. It's insane. I love gear. But my dream gear would be basically what I have right now. I have a VP4 from Fractal handling all of my modulation effects. I've got everything I pretty much need. I've got a tube screamer on the front of the amp, a couple pedals here and there. I'm okay, which is great. I think it's more like the guitar that I'm more interested in. I always buy different guitars, try them out, bring it out to a show, and then return it. For me, I don't like keeping guitars that I don't play. I'm not a collector. Every guitar that I keep in my arsenal are guitars that I'm interested to play.
Do you think that tube amps sound better than the digital equivalents that you have in the industry right now? If so, why? And if not, why not? And if you had a chance to use, for example, a dumbbell amp or one of those amps that costs 11 million, what would you pick?
So it depends for me. So for live play, I'm all about tubes. Nothing can replace a good tube amp for me. I'm a sucker for the amp in room sound, the cab pushing air. I've tried a million times to go the modeling route in the live world, and it just did not cut it for me for whatever reason. A part of the reason is we don't always play venues with a great sound system. So when we're playing in a place where you're relying on the sound coming from the speaker, from the guitar cab, digital modelers aren't gonna cut it. It's just not gonna work. If you have a great sound system, you go front of house DI, it's awesome. It can be used great. For recording, I think all the digital modelers are fantastic. And honestly, I couldn't tell the difference between a tube amp and an amp sim on a recording. But when it comes to playing, as a guitar player, I definitely feel the difference of playing through a tube amp versus a modeler. There's just something, it's not even the latency, though there is a bit more latency, obviously, when you're playing with a modeler. Maybe it's the sag, I don't know. I feel different when I'm playing through a tube amp, and it just feels that much more special to me. It's more enjoyable to me. So in that regard, for live play, always tube amps. I mean, if we get to a point where, we're only playing venues with awesome sound systems, then I would definitely revisit the modeler. It's definitely far more convenient, and gosh, tube amps are really heavy, and I hate carrying them. That's why I'm kind of downgrading my 4x12 to a 2x12, because it's just a pain in the butt to lug those things around. But yeah, I do have a Fractal FM9 that I think is great. If we were to do a fly-in gig somewhere, I would potentially use that. If I knew that the venue we were playing was, capable of handling that. Yeah, as far as convenience, you will never beat the digital modelers, especially if you're in a cover band or something like that. Go digital modeler all the way. But for an original band that plays in venues that are not necessarily built for, instruments going directly into their speaker systems, a tube amp you can't beat it, because it has to overpower the drums, and it can't sound crappier the louder you turn it up, as it does for the digital modelers, where, I guess you can kind of adjust it through some EQ with a low cut and a high cut, but still not the same. Tube all the way, baby.
All of us go through different emotions and states in our lives, whether it's sorrow and grief, excitement, elation, joy, disappointment, anger. How does that affect your creative output? Do you find that in times of grief and some of the darker emotions, you are a little more driven to write stuff, or do you become a little more of a recluse? And do you find that in joy and the more positive emotions that you are a little more creative?
So this is actually a really easy answer for me. I can't write if I'm happy. If I'm happy, there are other things I want to do. I want to go out and go hiking. I want to, I don't know, be active and hang out with friends and things like that. I generally tend to write when I'm a little bit more down or contemplative, as you can probably tell from the lyrics.
It's complicated. I mean, I do write my own words, and I do write poetry, you know, in my phone or just on a piece of paper when I'm feeling a certain way sometimes. But there are some times when I just can't play at all or really do anything. It's definitely tough. I think overall it is a really, really good release. You know, physically and emotionally being able to get certain feelings out, you know, after bad stretches. And it definitely helps. You know, even if, you know, whether or not I'm playing live or just playing at, you know, rehearsal or just playing by myself in my storage unit, it's always a pretty good release. But it's tough sometimes. It is tough. I think it's just me being burnt out and being overplayed more than being depressed or sad. Usually that's when I'm having trouble getting certain things across, is when I'm, you know, just not feeling like actually playing music and feeling a little bit burnt out. But, you know, usually those things pass, and, you know, I'll go listen to something I haven't listened to in a long time, or I'll just watch, you know, other drummers and other musicians, and that really recharges me and kind of, you know, gives me a good kick to keep it going. So,
can you perhaps pick a song or three that were born out of a really strong emotional context? And it could be joy, it could be something darker. We'd love to hear a song that was ideated from an emotional perspective.
Yes. I think all the songs that I've written come out of that emotional state.
All right, so the next question for the band from a food perspective is, every man out there has a signature dish that they are super proud of. What can each of you create from a dish perspective that you are super proud of?
There's two, I think. Chicken piccata. I make a really mean chicken piccata. And French toast. I'm really good at French toast.
So honestly, I'm a pretty picky eater, and I don't really cook a whole lot. I mean, I can make some really good chicken wings, but I mean, nothing really crazy, man. I mean, usually I just try to lately I've just been having eggs on toast a lot, but pretty much probably just chicken wings. You know, I think I do a pretty good job making those. I know it's nothing special at all, so sorry. Hopefully you're not let down too much.
So here's another food-related question. If you had your favorite musician with you and they came to hang out with you for a day, where would you take them, and what kind of cuisine would you offer them?
We have this place called Four Brothers here in Richmond, which is it's a really good spot, and they have some of the best cheesesteaks I've ever had, possibly the best cheesesteaks I've had south of Philly. But they also have burgers, they have gyros, they have hot dogs, they have kind of a little bit of everything. They have different wraps. So I would be inclined to say Four Brothers Grill, because they have the best, kind of the best variety of really, really good stuff here in Richmond.
I would take them to a Persian place in Orange County, California called Hutdom. Check it out. They make the best kubadid ever.
If you could pick just two songs which are your favorites from the entire Schumann catalog, what are your two favorite songs to play?
My favorite songs to play live. Ambrosia is a fun one. That's the first song anybody's ever heard from us, and it, you know, kind of sets the standard of what we sound like. I think that's a fun one to play. It's got, you know, one of my favorite guitar solos that I've written. Another fun one to play, Anxiety and Daydreams, probably. One, it's a newer one, so I'm kind of biased, but it's fun because it draws on a different kind of musical landscape that, you know, hasn't been done by our band. So it's kind of, you know, it's got the post-rock kind of thing going on at times, and so that's kind of fun to play. I would love to play some of our longer ones again. You know, at one point we did play Dream of the Sleeper, but I would love to play from our third record, Breathing Light, which is one that I think is really great. And then from our last record, I would love to play Porcelain Trees.
I would say Anxiety and Daydreams is one of my favorites. It's really technical. It's very, very progressive in the right ways. Definitely, and I think Zink agrees with me. It's definitely my favorite instrumental that he's done. The band has done. Of course, Marco Miniman is playing drums on the song, and the vibe and the feeling that it really is appropriately named, because there's definitely a sense of kind of nostalgia with that song already. When I listen to it, it takes you to a certain place in your mind for sure, and it's definitely one of those songs, I think, for sure, emotionally, definitely one of the strongest songs in the catalog. And the second one is actually Keep It Together, one of the poppier songs, just because it's probably it might be my favorite Schumann song, period. It's just really, really, really catchy. I really, really like the lyrics. It's definitely one of the songs that's fun to play just because of the feeling that it gives you and just how much I like it. You know, it's not a very challenging song to play. So yeah, I would definitely say, Anxiety, Daydreams, and Keep It Together.
If you could create your own dream band with you playing the instrument that you are currently playing, or maybe you're playing another instrument, what would that look like? And who would the members be?
Timo Tolkki on guitar, Zippy from Dragon Force on vocals. Oh man, it's just so many to pick from. Cliff Burton on bass, and boy, who would the keyboardist be? I'm not sure. Let me think. So tough. But I mean, realistically, that would be and of course me playing drums. I wish I could play a different instrument, but yeah, I mean, that'll probably be the skeleton of the band. I'm gonna have to think about that one, because my answer is probably going to change in an hour or so. I'm gonna think, I should have picked that guy instead, but I don't know, man. But yeah, I have to think on that one.
More than likely, I would be the singer, just a singer, not a guitar player. On guitar, who would I get? Maybe someone like Alex Lifeson on guitar. On bass, Tony Levin probably. Drums, I have so many favorite drummers. Probably between Manu Katché or Gavin Harrison. Jeez, both of them are killer drummers. Keyboards, no doubt in my mind, Kevin Moore, Extreme Theater. And, if I had a second guitar, maybe Chris DeGarmo from Queensryche. I think that would be cool.
Here's another question for William and Zink. Which is the most difficult song for you to play live, and why?
So the most difficult song for me to play live, that we've played live, probably Sunrise at Midnight, which is one of the instrumental songs off our first record. It's got a lot of cool finger exercise type of elements in the song, and the guitar solo had a lot of string skipping in it, if I remember. We haven't played it in quite some time. That was probably one of the ones, before we started playing, I was like, I hope I can pull this off. As far as songs that we're playing in our set right now, I think the most difficult one would probably be Some Memories for me. Just because the rhythm section in the verse is, very rhythmic and staccato, and to be able to play that and sing it at the same time is quite challenging, and I constantly run through that part, singing and playing before shows, just to make sure that I nail that. And sometimes I don't, so it's definitely the more difficult one for me.
Most difficult? There's a few, but I'll go ahead and say Some Memories. Even though I love playing that song, it's a really good anthemic, kind of anthem-y kind of song with the, with the big chorus and the really catchy verse. It's definitely tough. I mean, the double bass runs in the verse are pretty difficult, which is kind of interesting because most of the other, challenging stuff that's fun to play in Schumann is because of the time signature. But, with this song and the verses, it's just the endurance and the kind of the stop-start pattern. That took a while to kind of to wrap my head around. And the outro has this really weird meter in the outro where the beat flips. I think it's in 7/4. It's really challenging. That was one of the parts I mentioned in one of my other little clips that I had to slow down like a lot and really just kind of work it out in my mind and work out what the right and left arm are gonna be doing. Yeah, so yeah, some memories, challenging song, difficult song to play, but a very fun song. One of my favorite songs off the new album. One of my favorite songs to play nonetheless.
Schumann is a local band with most of the members being not really full-time musicians but in different industries. However, you are one of the most successful bands from the area. You have seen national and international recognition and acknowledgement and success through different outlets, through magazines, podcasts, radio play. You have really stellar guest performances on your album, and a lot of musicians speak highly about you. What advice can you offer other bands in the area?
So we are a tiny, microscopic band in the grand scheme of things. Even that's an overstatement. But if I were to give advice to any local bands to enter the scene, make sure you love doing what you're doing. And if you don't, just question why you're doing it, and maybe do something else that you'd love doing. And then 2, play live as much as you can. Know your gear, know what you want your gear to do, and make sure that it does the right things in a live situation. Because there's a lot of times where I think I have my gear right, and then I step on something, or something just goes massively wrong, and then you just have to troubleshoot in real time and make sure that you can continue playing the song. So it's just getting familiar with your gear and just getting used to playing live, which is really important. Yeah, that's pretty much it.